Boom. Welcome back into Inside the Game, the new podcast here on the National Soccer Network. Jonathan Turner alongside Nathan Wangler. It is Monday, the 13th. We're 13 days into the new year. And Nathan, my friend, it feels like everything is just going so much faster.
in 25 versus any other year. Yeah, I mean, I guess I would agree. No, it's everyone says new year, new me. I think it's still the same me. I think it's a new year. I still doing the same thing, but this is the new thing here, this show. But yeah, I mean, everything goes quicker. I feel like with every passing year, everything goes quicker, especially with what we do and how much we fill up our time with things every day. I mean, once we're done recording here, I'm sure it'll feel like a snap, and then we're right back here again tomorrow morning. But I kind of like it that way. What's up, Peter? Back again, dude. I mean, we got a loyal listening audience of one. We know we got one at least, and then us two talking to each other. So we're gonna watch this back. But we got three loyal listeners.
Well, we do. And here are a couple things. One is we haven't really had a flow as far as like regimented or in order to how I call it organized chaos, because we just literally just 3 minutes ago I was like, hey, we're gonna talk about this, and you're like, oh, thanks for the text, John. I'm like,
yeah, thanks for the heads up, dude.
I'm like, well, I think
the whole show together over here, and JT's like, you know what, I know what we're gonna talk about.
Well, you threw a bunch of questions at me on Friday. I had no idea what those were gonna be about. So like, I figured why not throw something in your direction that might might test you, challenge you a little bit. But here's the thing. I want to talk about our weekend here real quick. And then I want to talk about what's coming up here this upcoming weekend. It has something to do with my hat. We'll get into that too. But first off, man, how was your weekend?
It was good. My weekend was solid. I'm still going through that process of kind of moving into the new place, so I'm in the middle of it right now. So I'm still putting the studio together. So just had some furniture and a bed frame to work on yesterday. So man, between that and then obviously getting back to sports now that things are kind of getting back, everyone's back from break. It's been a busy stretch. So nothing too extraordinary to report on. I think it's absolutely crazy though that we're kind of getting to the point now to where I'm starting to think about baseball season. Like it's crazy to think that. I mean, it takes half the year. I mean, the season itself, which is one of the things that is kind of, I think, ridiculous about the sport, the fact that the season does last as long as it does. But man, I mean, we're coming down the line here. But yep, just pretty much the usual stuff for the most part on my end. But I know you had a pretty exciting stretch with some of the people you were networking with.
Yeah, I mean, my weekend, I woke up on Saturday morning. So before I get into Saturday morning, Friday night though, I had a chance to go to a restaurant in Chicago. I've been there once before. It's called Gibson's. It's very famous in Chicago. I mean, if you ever go in there, it's right on Rush Street, right in the heart of, you're walking in between like Prada and Cartier and Dolce and Gabbana. I mean, it's like probably like Beverly Hills of Chicago, right? Rodeo Drive. It's probably like that, the equivalent of in Chicago. And I had a chance to go have dinner there on Friday night with some folks from a company called Upper 90. Upper 90 is really changing the game in regards to how like AI cameras and at tournaments and things like that. And we're in the process of forming a pretty good relationship that will help us just bring more games to our platform. But went to Gibson's. I had this 22-ounce steak, aged steak. It was unbelievable. Expensive as hell, but unbelievable nonetheless. And I remember at the end of the dinner, you want dessert, and we looked over to the like our left. So if I'm sitting here to my left, there's a couple sitting off to our side, and we see this cake arrive at the table, Nathan, and it is like, I mean, it's like this tall and it's like this big. It is a single piece of carrot cake that the restaurant has given this table. That it is a single piece, mind you. I mean, this thing is huge. And I look over it and they're like, we just ordered a slice. They ordered a slice. This thing was bigger than my leg. That's how big this thing was, right? And I look at him, I go, "Did you guys know it was gonna be that big?" And they're like, "No." I go, "We should all go Dutch on this because that's how we let's just split this thing as a group with this whole table of people. It was
That big of
that
a
big.
slice of carrot
It was
cake? They
it
didn't
was
have any
it
double
was
chocolate back there or anything?
my guess is they probably did, but
Weirdos?
this is what that was brought out. I mean, this thing is huge, and I think the argument that you start to ask yourself when you go to restaurants that are more of the on the a la carte, right? You go to your big chain restaurants, you're gonna get a steak, it's gonna come with two sides, and whatever. Not at like a place like Gibson. You're gonna go get your steak. It's by itself. Right. And then you're going to get, you want some sides. They're kind of more like for the table to share, they're kind of a la carte, and this cake was big enough to feed a family of 7. That's how big this slice of cake was. It was very impressive, but, but anyways, I got back to the hotel at like 9:00 on Saturday, and on Friday night we had two MASL games that we were broadcasting. So I was able to help kind of our crew from the hotel manage that, and then I got up early on Saturday and made my way back the 4.5-hour drive back on Saturday morning to get back here, into Michigan, and I kind of just relaxed on Saturday, and then spent like about 14 hours yesterday preparing for the week. But and then, of course, watching some football, right? And the big game last night. Well, there were 2 games for the NFC that were important. Obviously, the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay Packers looked like garbage. They played terrible. Just it was weird because I mean, defensively they played pretty well. Offensively they could not figure it out. Obviously, you're talking about playing against the number 1 defense in the NFC, so you expect to maybe not play as great, but they looked awful. And
Yeah,
then
there's a certain level of offensive synergy I feel like that the Eagles have lost, and we've seen with the drama in that wide receiver room, especially when it comes to a lot of the guys beefing with Jalen Hurts and everything that's going on in that regard. That offense has seen better days in terms of being well-oiled and being able to move the ball a lot better. But I've said the same exact thing about the Chiefs. You can say that they're not quite the same team. That's fine, but they're still the Chiefs. The same thing, same exact thing applies to the Eagles. Yeah, you have one of the best defenses in the NFL. Also, shout out Brandon Graham, go blue. But you have arguably the best defense in the NFL, statistically speaking. You still have a lot of those same pieces from those teams that have made Super Bowl runs. You don't have Kelsey at center, so you don't really have your captain. You don't have a lot of those older pieces. The truth is you still have an aging group, but the truth is that they're still very much the Eagles. So you knew they were going to be a tough out, especially on the road too for Green Bay. I mean, that's not an easy matchup. And I think their downfall was how they played again right at the end of the season, especially with the Bears getting that win too. So
well, yeah, they struggled.
Eagles are still the Eagles. That's all I'll say about that.
No, I get it. And then obviously you saw Tampa Bay fall last night on they fell 23-20 to Washington. And I mean, to be fair, I actually like the fact that the Lions are now playing Washington on Saturday night. And a reason why I just feel like Tampa Bay is when we talk about equivalency of like toughness and grittiness. I feel like Tampa Bay has that same kind of mentality, right? They're just really tough. They're physical. I think they're one of the more physical teams in the NFC, and that's not a team that you want to face again. At least from my perspective. I also felt like playing the Vikings or the Rams again. It's just hard to beat a team 3 times in a season.
Yeah.
And now we would see the Vikings or the Rams in an NFC Championship game, and that's different than playing them in the divisional round. Yeah. So I actually like the matchup of the Commanders. Not obviously not saying it's going to be an easier game, but just to me, I like that matchup better this week at home than I did the Tampa Bay. Well, we wouldn't have seen Tampa Bay, but the Vikings or the Rams. So
there's a couple of reasons for that. I mean, number one, obviously Tampa beat us. The other thing that I would say though too is that playoff football is just it's won within the margins. Oftentimes all it takes is a swing one way or the other on 1 or 2 players. I mean, we saw that the college football championship. I mean, the strip sack at the end. That's one play that if that goes the other way, all of a sudden we're talking about overtime, and we're talking about a Rose Bowl that looks a lot similar to the one we had.
Came down to quarterback errors,
we had
right?
last year. But it was the same thing with Baker. When he's calling for motion, and all of a sudden he gets the snap late and he doesn't take the right angle and he fumbles it, and all of a sudden Washington has it in perfect field position, and now the entire momentum of that game is flipped. So I think Tampa would have been the harder matchup. The other thing is, and I'll tell you this right now, JT, Jaden Daniels, and he is the future of quarterbacking in the NFL. He's not just a franchise quarterback. I think he's going to be a top 5 QB in the National Football League for years to come. He can do everything. And we saw that with the way that Tampa literally had to attack him last night, with having 2 guys having to spy on him and making sure that he couldn't just take off and use his legs, because it's very much Lamar Jackson-esque in the way he moves around the field. That concerns me a little bit when it comes to a defensive depth, but I'll tell you why I like the matchup a little bit more. I'll take a rookie quarterback against the Lions at home over someone like Baker Mayfield, who's really kind of undergone a renaissance in his career, and now he's considered a vet. He knows how this league moves a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'll definitely take that matchup. I think Washington's happy. They just got their first playoff win since 2005, right? So they're building in the right direction, but we got our first since the 1990s last year. So
yeah,
we're going to continue taking those steps forward, but
yeah,
the 12th man is huge.
Hey, so I just mentioned the game's on Saturday night, 8:00. So we'll all be watching that game on Fox. I'm assuming that'll be Tom Brady and the like will be on that call for that game. But before we dive into our main topic today, I wanted to make an announcement, and it's going to come up on your screen. And obviously, if you're listening, you can't see it. So there'll be information in our bio of a description of this video and videos moving forward in regards to this announcement, because I think it's a big deal. I mean, but I'm going to put it on your screen. And there it is. We at Inside the Game officially have Inside the Game merch. It's now available on the nationalsoccernetwork.com. And I'm excited about it. And we're going to put it on the screen. Up there it is. There is where you go. We have it on the screen. You can get mugs. You can get T-shirts and hoodies. It will continue to add more into this area. But get your Inside the Game merch. Also, we've got a whole bunch of other stuff on the National Soccer Network as far as merch is concerned. We've got our Soccer versus Everybody category. I like this category, to be fair. Again, it just, I like it's like if you live in Detroit and live in Michigan, kind of how this slogan has worked, right? Soccer versus Everybody it's usually it's Detroit versus everybody, but we've kind of taken our own thing on that. And then we also have your home for soccer. I'm going to click that up there as well. That's our slogan here. But as you can see, we got a lot of different merch that's now available on our platform. So check that out. And that's kind of the announcement today that we've got kicking.
It's some good stuff too. I mean, that's some quality material. And if it's anything else like the other stuff that I've gotten, some of the apparel from obviously MSN previously, not NSN now, I wear it all the time. I mean, it's some of the most comfortable stuff that I own. I got a couple of T-shirts as well as I got a sweatshirt too. So it's going to last you a while too. And that's the other thing. We use quality materials with our things. Obviously, if you get the tumbler or the coffee mug, I hope you can make that last a little while. You don't have to put that one through the one washing machine. You don't have to. Anyways, getting back to my point, very comfortable stuff. It's also reasonably priced too. So yeah, if you want to support the show, I know I've been getting a couple of DMs, especially after our last few shows, from people talking about what we're doing on here. And obviously, if you guys want to go back and listen to it, or if you feel like you missed something, or if you didn't listen to all of it, obviously multiple different ways you can listen back to the episodes. But to anybody out there, I know we're past the Christmas season, so you're not necessarily getting stocking stuffers or anything like that, but it's reasonably priced. It's some really good material too. You're gonna love wearing it.
That is true, and we're excited to be able to provide merch. And there's so much more coming your way. So I would continue to stick around and kind of stay for the ride. Another thing is, we know that potentiality that TikTok might be going away here in the next week or so. obviously TikTok is not one of our bigger platforms. It's obviously YouTube, it's Instagram. So we are okay in that regard. But what I would say is this today, Nathan, which I haven't told you yet either, I started filming like a day in the life of me, right? So every day
Good.
I will film a couple videos about what I do as the president of the Premier Media Group and what I do as the director of broadcasting for the National Soccer Network and kind of how those intertwine and how that's really going to help us catapult us into the #1 soccer platform in the country here in the coming years. So just stay tuned for that. I'll be actually sending you the videos, Nathan, for you to put them out to the world. But so you know where to find those.
Because I'm wondering what the hell you do on a daily basis. I talk to you every day, and I don't even know who this guy is. So good. It's gonna tell me a lot too.
Yeah, so that'll start to launch here later today on our platform. So stay tuned for that. But I want to talk today, Nathan, about coaching. Okay. I was just at the coaching convention here this past week. And I don't think it's a better thing to discuss than coaching just based off of that. And I want to me, this video that I'm about to share right now on our screen, I think that's where the collegiate coach is at right now. And if we think about coaches over the last couple of years, you stepped away from the game, right? Nick Saban, he stepped away from the game. Now, do you believe in all of your heart, your heart of hearts, do you believe that Nick Saban would have walked away last year if the transfer portal and money and all these NIL deals were in place? Do you think he walks away? I don't know. You muted. I don't know. You're muted, dude.
My bad. No. He would not have. And he is one of many, and it's a crop of a lot of the, what do you say, OGs, a lot of the coaches that have been around for years and years and years that have left. I do think there are layers to that story, though. I think it has changed things, especially with now that you are legally allowed to do what you couldn't do legally then. And and in my personal opinion, and we can get deeper into this, I don't think NIL has changed anything. I think NIL simply took what was illegal before and made it legal now. So I think there are some coaches who struggle with this fact that other teams with budgets can now compete with them. But you're right, in terms of the old crop of coaches, and he's just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, that's just the start. They're all leaving because of the new age of college athletics, whatever way you want to look at that, good or bad.
So I'm about to show you a video here of Coach Cronin, UCLA head men's basketball coach. A recent press conference here back on January the 7th. So, recently in the sense it was about a week ago. But take a listen to this. We're going to do this in parts. I think it's important that we kind of break this down a little bit.
Soft. Yeah. Aside from, to be fair to you, obviously they have a unique skill set, the way they shoot the ball, but we're soft.
You obviously came back and took the lead. Do you feel like ran out of energy?
I have to run on the court to get guys to play hard. It's crazy, and it's every day. I'm tired of it. It's every day. I have the most energy of anybody at practice every day. I'm upset with everybody in that locker room, my assistant coaches and my players. I mean, I don't need to do anything else. I almost got 500 wins. I'm only 53. You think I'm coaching the Lakers? I mean,
okay, so obviously he's frustrated. I probably understand, and you probably already have. If you're a sports fan, you've probably already heard this. And again, this is men's basketball. But we've seen coaches stepping away. I mean, here in Michigan, Oak University, we've seen a number of coaches step away from their respective sports for many reasons that probably we will never know. But I would imagine on some level, if you go to the really foundation of why they're leaving, this is one of the core reasons. The athlete today is different than the athlete of yesterday. Period. And that could be good on a lot of different levels. It could be good on a lot of different levels. I mean, the player today is smarter than they were 20 years ago. The player today has access to things that they didn't have access to 20 or 30 years ago. So from that standpoint, the athlete is probably better prepared, overall than they would have been 20 or 30 years ago for their sport. But with the introduction of money, whether it was illegal or not, it's now illegal to collect said money. So we're going to go off the the thought that they weren't collecting money before and they are now. I think that's the best way to go because it wasn't legal before. So if it was happening, then that should not have led to anything, where a coach to this level would be that frustrated, right? That's my perspective. But we're going to go off this mindset that there was no illegal money happening and that they weren't getting paid. And now that they are, and that does play a factor. I hear it every single week on Greg Campy's radio show because I'm involved in the production aspect of that at Oak University. He's been doing this for 41 years. And he is talking about how he has to make decisions with non-conference games playing Power 5 schools to collect a paycheck from those schools in order to pay his players. So he's saying that. I mean, it says it clear as day every single Monday night on the Golden Grizzlies YouTube channel. So we know that. Now, what does that mean for the player? So the player who he's talking about right now, his players are all getting paid. This is a Big Ten school. It's obviously new to the Big Ten, right? It's a Big Ten school. It's UCLA. So these players are your top players on this team. You're probably your starting 5 are all probably making upwards of $500,000, $250,000 a year. Again, I'm not going to say that for sure, but that's what they're probably making on some level, right? And they don't. And I know that the way the NIL deals work now is they don't pay you all at once. It's kind of put into like a trust of some kind, is my understanding. So it's not like you're getting all of this in a paycheck and it's like, here's all your money, you can go spend it all. But you're getting paid. And while I think there's a lot of people out there like, thank goodness these players are getting paid, because universities for the longest time they've been getting free labor, right? But the byproduct of paying a player now is how this coach Cronin is feeling. Like, these kids don't give a crap. They're already getting paid. They think that they're prima donnas, right? And they don't have to put the same effort in, because there is something to be said about a player. And to be fair, the player on the bench right now who's number 9 on their depth chart, he's the one who's got to work his ass off to get on the court. He's not talking about player number 9. He's talking about players 1 through 5. That's maybe 1 through 6. That's who he is addressing right now.
Right. Well, and so here's the thing. You can't say, much like you can't say these days or what goes on in this generation or things are worse now than what they were before. You can't say that, in the way the world is or anything else like that. What you can say is it's different. A lot of stuff that's very different about living in 2025 versus living in 1995, what some people might consider the glory days, or even earlier than that. You can't say that one generation is better or worse than the other. It's simply different. And the same thing can be said and applied to NIL as well as the transfer portal. You can't say that it's worse, but it's a heck of a lot different. And here's my thing. And this is why I always bring it back to this. These schools did benefit off of free labor for years and years and years and years, making millions of dollars off of this product, while these kids, again, a lot of them from bad neighborhoods that they don't want to go back to, are getting the opportunity to come out of and play for. And before, okay, they would get their degree in whatever it was. You and I know that a degree doesn't necessarily guarantee a job, right? But now we have the opportunity that these kids can actually get some bankroll while they're in college, working, again, a full-time job, because that's what playing Division I sports at that level is. It's a full-time job. So what this has allowed teams and universities to do is, and even the individual player, is when they get to college, their life has changed. This isn't and if you do get to the NFL or the NBA or any of these other leagues, then your life has changed. Then you have an opportunity to get your family out of the south side of Chicago. Then you have an opportunity to do these other things in order to put yourself and everybody else that's going to come after you in a better situation. That's the good. I also feel like transfer portal, you talk about the 9th guy on the team, he wouldn't be there probably, a lot of them, if it wasn't for the transfer portal. I know a kid when I was at Cornerstone University. He was a golfer, and I think this was in 2018. He was golfing, and he didn't like that. He wanted to get back into football. Goes to Indiana Wesleyan to play football. There for a couple of years. Transfers out for his senior years. Final year playing. He goes to Purdue. The guy in front of him gets hurt. Now he's starting. Not only did he start against Michigan in the Big House at night, but he also started against Ohio State and a couple of other Big Ten schools at the end of the year. Now, did they do very well? No. But that kid, as well as the Hillsdale wide receiver who went to Iowa and all these other guys, they wouldn't have those opportunities without the transfer portal. Okay, so I gave you the good, right? We're paying players. We're giving them an opportunity to generationally change things and get out of their bad situations with paying players. Good. We're also giving kids that are going to NAIA or NCAA D3 or some of these other schools, under-recruited, maybe a little undersized. We're giving them an opportunity to hop up to the Division I level. Good. The issue here, JT, is that not everything is created equal in NIL. They didn't create a system that was equal, and therefore some players are getting paid more than others. But I think people think, and it goes back to what you were saying, the money is creating a sense of entitlement. In the fact that kids nowadays, and I think this is an issue with just kids in general in 2025, and I don't know how you feel about this, especially having been a coach and seen it firsthand. There is a sense of kids they run from the smoke. They don't like adversity. They don't welcome adversity. That's not fuel for them. They want everything kind of tailor-made for them and put right in front of them. There's that sense of that, and it's because of this generation of players that are coming up now, which is everything is player-driven. I think this is more of a society thing than it is necessarily an NIL or transfer portal thing, and it does. I think it does play into it, but I think there's this sense of, again, kids, they don't want to go through the hard thing, and that's why you see 30,000+ kids in the transfer portal, and only a portion of them are actually going to find a place that they can play consistently and get everything they want in. So it's a new generation of student athletes, which is why it makes it so much harder. And that's why these old crop of coaches are all leaving, because they can't get a kid to stay in their program for more than a year. And the turnover, especially at these massive schools, you think of Alabama football, their transfer portal list could probably compete in one of the smaller conferences. They could probably go out and win a MAC championship if they were just to put their team of transfer portal guys together to go play. But where that affects the college landscape isn't necessarily the guys at the higher levels, it's the players at the lower levels. So I think the money and the transfer portal and all that stuff plays into it, but I think it's a dual-edged sword, right? It's good. Again, getting kids out of their bad situations, allowing them to get to better situations and transfer to bigger schools if they're capable of playing there. But on the other side, again, we've created a rat race. And you got to understand, I'm a Michigan fan, JT. There should be no one else in the world that's happier about the current state of NIL than myself, because Michigan is the biggest alumni base in the world. They have one of the top 5 budgets in all of college sports. They were one of a handful of schools to even make money from athletics last year. I should be over my skis about the fact that this is allowed now in college athletics. But here's the thing. It's creating this massive gap between the haves and the have-nots. And now you have coaches that are at the have-not programs who don't even know how to field a team. And there's just no sense of pride at all. And you can't get them to commit because they're going to get poached anyway. So it's the Wild West, man. And it all goes back to the NCAA. If you're going to get mad at anybody about the current state of athletics, don't get mad at Michigan for putting up $12 million for Bryce Underwood. Okay, don't be mad at this school for putting up this amount of money. Be mad at the NCAA as a regulating body for not understanding how to put a system together that is fair. because they did this to college athletics. It's fascinating. And I don't think you could say conclusively one way or the other that now that we have money, all of a sudden that created a sense of entitlement. I just think the sense of entitlement has just come from the social media generation. Everybody has a highlight package now. Freaking 10-year-olds have highlight packages. JT, 10 years old. Why you need a highlight package? It's stupid. I'm going to start getting actually visibly angry about this. I think this is a generational thing. I don't think it's an NAL transfer portal thing. I think it's a generational thing. My opinion.
It a lot obviously to unpack there. Obviously, I believe there's a generational aspect and component to this, but of course, I think there's a multitude of issues. Parenting, right? Parenting has changed and evolved, or I don't know, deteriorated. Maybe that's a better word to use. Deteriorated over the years, and you know, and specifically as it relates to this, I'm not gonna argue that there are, you know, that parents out there are deteriorating how they parent. I'm just saying that ultimately, when it comes to athletics, the type of parenting has just it's all over the place. You can see it in the form of their behavior on the sidelines. You can see it in the form of their behavior, you know, when it comes to, you know, their children and how they push them and just different things that you can see. And then for someone that coached at, you know, at the high school level, I can tell you that, you know, that the parenting has changed dramatically over the years. I can also tell you that the kids, the athlete themselves, I don't remember my fellow student athletes, my peers, taking AP courses to the extent that they're available today. I don't remember all of those. I know that there were high level classes back when I was growing up, but I don't remember these type of classes that are available today to an athlete. Right? I had kids that I was coaching that were like already like had 2 years of college under their belt when they were by a senior year of high school. So I mean, the opportunity for these kids to move ahead within the high school realm is a real thing for the student athlete, right? Not the athlete who happens to be also be a student, but the student athlete. And so the player, like the certain players in these environments are super duper intelligent and are more prepared intellectually for the world than their predecessors. Now, take that aside for a second. I had this conversation with my wife the other day. We know that when it comes to adversity, the children of today have a hard time with it. The pressures of today are very different of the pressures of yesterday. They're massively different. We as kids, all we had to worry about was, you know, you go to school, you come home, and you know, you maybe watch some TV, go play with some friends. I mean, you have so much information in front of you, good, bad, or indifferent, and we have not really given our children the tools necessary to solve problems in an effective way. And we also have not taught them how to respect the people who are have more experience in life, regardless of their position. I always said yes sir, no sir. I always was respectful to the people who, you know, my teachers, my coaches. I mean, I never ever would have questioned my coach. You know, the student athlete today is going to question their coach. They're going to, why, you know, what? Well, because I said so. That's not good enough for them. It's not good enough anymore. It used to be, I could say, this is what we're doing this. And there was no ifs, ands, or buts. Now it's like, oh no, like seriously. Like, and to be fair, I don't know if that has anything to do with money, as it has more to do with the fact that generationally, we just haven't done a good job of raising our children to understand that they're the one, they have to be respectful to the people who are in a position of authority. And that doesn't mean you have to give on, you know, like, you're like loyal regardless of how, you know, to a fault. You know, you're loyal based on the person, the individual, and the respect that they also give, because mutual respect is a big deal regardless of position. But I don't believe that is like a, you know, a non-negotiable when it comes to parents. It's not non-negotiable anymore. It used to be non-negotiable.
Right.
And that's a huge factor, you know, in this part of it. And then the last part that I want to go into is the money aspect. Okay. And I'll put the perfect example. I've been in sales my entire life. And there were moments where, man, I wasn't making any sales. And when that happens, you're getting really hungry for money, right? So you're working your tail off to find a deal. And then the deal would come, close a deal. And what happens? You're like, okay, take a deep breath. I got some money. I'm good. Whew, that's what it's like for these kids. They've been working their tail off. They didn't have any money. Now they do. And like, whew, I'm here. I've made it. And that is the problem.
Yeah.
So you take
We've created complacency.
We've created a system where, I'm here.
Yeah.
And again, depending upon the scenario, first off, you've already got free schooling. So your education is free. So that's right there. If you're collecting these NIL deals and you are bringing in a couple hundred, look at Bryce Underwood. He's got $12 million that's going to come to him over the course of however many years. And obviously, I'm sure there are things that are built into there, so it doesn't just leave the program. $12 million. Technically, he doesn't have to go to the NFL with $12 million. He could retire from college and just go sit on a beach someplace, leave the money in a bank, but in a nice investment thing, portfolio, and just let that money just grow and he just live off the interest. He could do that right now. Well, not, when he's done with his career. I mean, because the average person doesn't have $12 million at their disposal. So that's the thing. Bryce could just coast through his college years. And I say coast, he could get through college and say, I'm not going to play in the NFL. Why do I even got to do it? I'm good. I proved my point. I got $12 million. Yeah. And to be fair, you and I both know, based on how he plays in college, he will make more money. So he will make more than $12 million. His floor is probably $12 million, but his ceiling is probably $25 million. So he could leave college with all this money and have to do nothing. And if he's really smart about it, he'll go play 1 or 2 years in the NFL, get a great signing bonus that's going to give him $100 million of guaranteed money for the first 2 or 3 years of his contract, and then retire. Got $140 million sitting in the bank. So, it is complacency. It is going to be the problem and the conundrum in this. And to be fair, I can only imagine what's going to happen from the team aspect of this, specifically in basketball. Because in basketball, it is only 10 players, 12 players on a team, right? So it is completely different than you're talking about with 75 players on a football team. That is completely different. Right? Because the 75 players on a football team, you're going to have 5 or 6 players in there that are going to be probably your higher paid players. But the vast majority of those players are all fighting, for the opportunity. So I don't think this is going to be a problem as much when it comes to the money side of it in football as it is in basketball, because basketball right now is the highest NIL paid sport in collegiate athletics. It's basketball. And so, and again, the problem is going to be this animosity that's going to happen. How do you keep your team together, for a season, all with the same common goal of going out and winning a championship, winning a league title, conference, or whatever? How are you going to keep them together when the player who's number 9 or 10 on that depth chart, who could go play Division I college athletics at basically any other Division I school on that roster,
right?
He's watching all these players slack off. He wants a chance to be on the court to go prove himself so he can make the money. He's not getting that chance because he's not good enough for those top 5. And this coach, as Cronin is doing, he's pissed off at the world because nobody's doing anything they're supposed to be doing. So his back's up against the wall. He's even saying, I've already won 500 games. What else do I have to do?
Yeah. Well, and you talked about the pressure on kids' shoulders, and especially from when you were a kid to now. Parents, big one. We know that. We've talked about that. Coaches, trainers, all those things. But when you get to the level that we're talking about, they all got agents. And here's the thing. I still am following him. Obviously, it's not going to be alive for much longer. Following a TikTok account of a gentleman that used to be a scout, major league scout. And he's worked around these agents before. First thing to keep in mind is that a lot of these guys, a lot of these agents that represent these players have never played the sport before a day in their life. They might have played JV sports. They might have played middle school sports. And maybe they watch a couple of games when they're having their cocktails in their nice houses and their whatever parties. I don't know. But a lot of these, 125-pound soaking wet sports agents have never played a sport in their life. But here's the thing. There's a new level of pressure on these kids' shoulders at this level because they've never had to deal with this type of agent before in their life. And that's, again, parents, expectations, business deals, everything like that. You know what the agent says? Oh, you don't have to play. You know, you got a bum ankle, you got a bruise. Oh, you don't have to. I know you got Michigan State coming up. I know this is Michigan State. This is a huge game, but think about all the money you're going to make, right? Think about this, think about that. You don't have to play, right? You're going to put us in jeopardy. You're going to put this business deal in jeopardy. You're going to put a lot of money in jeopardy if you go out and you show any sense of pride, fight, will, grit, anything to represent your school or represent your team. You don't got to play. Oh, he wants you to do what in practice?
Is so terrible. It's so
Yeah,
terrible.
he wants you to do
but
what in
it's
practice?
100%
No,
the case
you
though,
don't
too.
have
And
to do that.
I agree
Yeah.
with you, man. It's obviously there's an agent component to this, and that's a whole nother level. And we could probably talk about this topic for 7 years. To be fair, the thing I want to do this is if you're tuning in right now and you're watching on YouTube, you're watching on Roku, you're watching, you can go to Nat Soccer TV on YouTube. I'm sorry, on Twitter. Let us know your comments here on this. I'm curious your thoughts. And again, if you're not watching this live and you're watching it, put in the comment section on YouTube or anywhere you're watching. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or all the listening platforms, put it in the comments. I love to hear your thoughts about this specific topic in regards to players right now in America and why coaches are leaving. Coaches are leaving their jobs. Coaches are frustrated. And again, the money component of this is just one aspect. The transfer portal is a huge component of this. The transfer portal has rewarded non-loyalty. And it's rewarding it on both sides of the coin. So the coach and the university are also no longer loyal to a player, and the player is no longer loyal to a program. That's gone. All right. And what does that mean for the landscape of college athletics? It means that the college of the athletics in college is that a freshman who coaches would go out and recruit. All right, let's think about the recruitment aspect of the before the transfer portal, prior to COVID, right? What was that looking like? Well, it meant that the college coach would go out in the environment. It meant that Jim Harbaugh would spend the night in someone's home. That's what it meant, right?
Illegally.
That's what it meant. Now, why would a college coach do that? Like, let's be honest here. I mean, the biggest unknown, and this is the reason why you struggle to take the NFL draft is a real thing, but there was a period of time. I know we've gotten kind of back to a little bit of a normalcy when it comes to rookie contracts in the NFL, but there's a period of time there where like Matt Stafford got $100 million deal coming out of rookie, whatever that deal was worth. It was a ton of money, right? And then after that, those deals kind of went away because these rookies were unproven. I mean, if I look at the Detroit Lions and how many rookie players we drafted, Joey Harrington, right? And just think about these players that we drafted that were just god awful in the NFL, never amounted to anything. And for every one player, my story, there's probably 30 more stories to talk about. They're unproven. And what would you want if you're a coach? You want a proven player who's had success in a system that aligns best with your system. So why would you take a freshman when you could take a sophomore, junior, or a senior or a graduate student, from the Big Ten, and they can come into your Division II program and have an immediate impact and become like a superstar. And that, to be fair, that is what's changed this game even more so than the NIL. Now, NIL is just it's a byproduct of the new system, but it's the transfer portal. There's no loyalty anymore.
And what's going to happen to the NAIA kid? What's going to happen to the NCAA Division III kid?
Those kids are going to have a better. To be fair, those kids, I firmly believe this because I've watched a ton of these games and I've watched a lot of these players. Now, the NAIA
going to be a trickle down.
Well, I think that the cream rises to the top. Right, if you are a person who goes and scores 40 goals in your NAIA WAC conference schedule, and you're going to find your way into Division II, a Division I program, it's going to happen. Now, does it happen to the same level as others? No, but it's going to happen. If you are a player that goes out and shines when the light is on you, then guess what? You're going to find a way to go to where you want to go. I'm a firm believer in that. The problem is patience. We don't have it. We don't have it. So I'm going to go to Rochester Christian University. I'm going to play men's soccer, right? And I go out there. I start in all my freshman year games because I'm a pretty good player, and I immediately want to jump ship and I want to go to the next school, right? And then I want to
go play at LSU.
School. I want to go play the next school, right? And I want to go play the next school, right? It's and that's the problem. And so we don't have the patience anymore as individuals to hang on and to see things through, right? And that is the bad aspect for a player.
Right.
Coaches are probably in the same regard. But again, if you are a player that is willing to be, it can be versatile, meaning that you are able to go from a point guard to a forward to a center. I mean, again, that sounds terrible to have to do, but in any given game, players do go in to do different roles, right? You go from being a point guard to a center to a forward. I mean, it happens in transitional moments in games anyways. So if you're able to do that on a roster, you will find yourself playing at the highest levels if you can do it consistently. And the same thing is true with a soccer player. If you can play, aside from maybe being a goalie, but if you can be a left back and go play a holding six, right, or go play up top or out wide and be a 7 or an 11, a right forward, left forward, or midfielder, then you're going to be extremely beneficial, and you're not to your team, and you're gonna be able to really have some longevity if you can maintain your health. That's the biggest issue I see is the transfer portal.
To bring it back to coaching too, because you mentioned it briefly, I believe this is true. And it's not 100% true all the time, but the saying that players win games, coaches lose them. You got to really dig deep into that saying to really understand what it means. Players are the ones that are going to go out and they're going to actually win the game for you. Coaches are the ones that set a culture to where if they believe in you wholeheartedly and they believe in your message and they believe in the man next to them, they're going to go out and they're going to run through 10, 15 brick walls and they're going to win the game. It doesn't matter if you call peanut butter and jelly every single play. They're going to run peanut butter and jelly 1,000 times and go win the football game or the soccer game or whatever it is. But how are you supposed to as a coach? And this is when I talk about the old guard.
Omaha.
What's that? Throw the ball?
Omaha.
Good pull. But this is when we talk about like the old school coaches, like the Nick Sabans, who just had a reign of terror over college football, and a lot of the other older coaches that are going away. They are Mike Krzyzewski, I think, is another great one. Now, he retired after a long, storied career. So, I mean, we don't have to go down that road. But how are you supposed to be the guy that sets a culture? How are you supposed to be a guy who's supposed to cultivate a family? And you've been a coach before. You understand that when things are running like a smooth, well-oiled machine and everybody's getting along, success typically follows. How are you supposed to be that head coach that creates a locker room, that creates a camaraderie, that creates a sense of unison, that is going to get you to a point to where you can call, like Eberflus. Yeah, he really created a really healthy locker room over in Chicago. But how are you supposed to be that guy that can go into a game with a team that has such supreme confidence? I mean, I'm talking Michigan into a number 2 Ohio State this year. How can you be a team that goes into a group like that and can call peanut butter and jelly 1,000 times and go out and win a game if you're dealing with the current culture of the student athlete, which doesn't want to deal with adversity, doesn't want to deal with the smoke, doesn't want to deal with having to get along with people because they're getting paid X amount and they feel like the grass is greener on the other side. It is impossible. I mean, why is it that you think when you watch like Team USA men's basketball that they go out and they have a close basketball game against, I don't know, like name whoever, like freaking South Sudan plays them within 2 points. How is that possible? Because the guys from South Sudan have been playing their entire life together. And there's this sense of us against the world and its culture and camaraderie.
I think it's more of the same kind of mindset we talked about the U.S. men's hockey team from 1980, right? It's It's this,
Right.
you know,
But how do you create that culture if people are constantly
you
moving and they're getting paid?
you can't. You
Yeah.
can't create it in that environment. Now, I'm not saying that you can't try to find a way to replicate it in some way.
Yeah,
I do believe, and if we go back to the game of soccer for a second, I do believe that the U.S. men's national soccer team, you know, while they are paid athletes and they are professionals in most cases, probably in all cases, that's different, at least from my perspective. I still think that like the men's basketball team, U.S. men's basketball team, it still wants to have success, you know, and they want to give it their all. But I think that again, there's a different mindset. The athlete, the unless you're playing in the Premier League, you're not making $50 million a year, right? If you're a U.S. men's national soccer team player, so that's different.
The
And
point
again,
of
the
it was
United
the
States
changing
men's
of the
have never.
guards. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the men's national soccer team have never won a World Cup. They've had limited success in what, you know, regional tournaments, you know, around the CONCACAF, and that's great. But it hasn't done anything for them, right? In the world stage, for that matter. And you know, if I look at soccer as a whole, you know, soccer, you have in most rosters, you're going to have between 18 to 25 players. So again, different than basketball. NIL does not even come close to the same level as a basketball team. So if we talk about soccer for a second, it's, you know, 9:51 here. We got about 9 minutes to go in this show. And kind of bring it back into the sport. You know, how does all this impact soccer? Again, the transfer portal does impact soccer on more than any other aspect of this. Again, the NIL deals are dollars. They're not thousands. They're not millions, right? That's just not a thing. Now, if you get into some of the top schools in the nation, North Carolina for women's and in Santa Clara, you get into the men's side in Indiana, who's won a bunch of national championships, and I'd imagine the NIL deals there are larger than the average. But you know, it does. Heart is a big thing. As a coach, we could talk about talent all day long, and while talent does win championships, it's the team that wants it more that will get it more often than the team that has more talent. Now, especially in one-off games, right? You start talking about a series, you know, heart is going to be tough, right? It's you know, talent and execution are going to be what ends up winning you. But when you start talking about playing a single game, right? It's one game elimination, like the NFL football playoffs. You know, that's where you're gonna find out what a team is made of, because it's one or done, right? And in those environments, the team that wants it more and can execute on the other team's mistakes is ultimately going to win that game. And that is where March Madness, for example, and what UCLA's Nick Cronin is even talking about, because in those games, will the players that are, you know, prima donnas, who aren't giving it their all in training and practice, are they the ones that are they going to show up and help their team get to success? Because that, to be fair, if I'm Nick Cronin in the locker room, that's what I'm telling them. Hey guys, okay, fine. You don't want to give first off, we have to get there. In order to get there, we have to win our conference or be in the conference championship and be in the top, you know, 20 in RPI in the country, right? If we want to get, or top 64 in the country, right? To get into that conversation and get a chance to be in that spotlight, because then the money can be even greater. Because that's what the conversation is going to be about, right? Nick, you have to say, hey, Nathan, is what you have to say is that at the end of the day, if it's about money, then if you want a bigger payday, we have to get here.
Yeah.
Right. You have to win your conference championship. You got to win, you know, get into the tournament and get into the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight, you know, and then the money becomes even bigger and greater for you.
Yeah. Well, and it's like the thing that I always circle back to is the money would be greater, but I guess for these kids, it's, you know, what matters? That's the hardest thing when I think of where we are in this conversation and being that young, because truly, I mean, they're all, 7, 8, 9, 10 years younger than I am now, which is absolutely crazy to think. I mean, even 11, you know, if we're going to talk about some 17-year-olds that are out making plays, but the hardest thing is, just to wrap up, I guess, put a bow on this conversation and what we're trying to say is, Is it the social media followers and the clout that matter? Because you probably already got enough pulling in that regard to where people know you. You're going to be able to find something maybe at Barstool Sports once you're done with your playing career. Does that matter? Does the guaranteed money that you're getting, does that matter the most? Does helping other people out financially, what matters? What's the priority? Because when we talk about all the different pressures that are now on these kids' shoulders, brand deals, NIL, agent, all these other things that they have to worry about. You want to talk about a conference championship? You want to talk about going to the big dance and winning national titles? Yeah, all that's cool, but I feel like I kind of already have everything I need. I got enough money in the bank account to buy some really nice stuff. I got, more friends and acquaintances on social media, and I'm the freaking man. What do I need a Big Ten title for? So that's the other thing is I just think the drive and the want has become watered down. Now, me just being a regular Joe, I take a lot of pride in the school that I watch. I take a lot of pride in the school that a lot of my family went to, and my name is well known around there. There's a sense of pride with me that comes with watching them win championships. But societally speaking, influence-wise, everything like that, I'm not playing Division I basketball at Michigan or Division I soccer, whatever it is. So many things are already just set up and put on a pedestal for some of these players, regardless of what the sport is, that all of a sudden things like going out and winning championships seems kind of obsolete. It just seems like something that, it seems like a side quest, if you will, like, yeah, if we end up making it there, if we end up doing it, so be it, that would be fun. But, and again, this is not the same for all teams and all schools and all sports. There's still a lot of passion in college athletics. We saw it with the playoffs, this last weekend and everything like that. But there is this sense of Jonathan Turner. If I was 18 years old too, and here's the thing, I have never seen $500,000 in my bank account. I've never seen $1 million in my life. At 28 years old, I don't know how I would react to that. I hope I wouldn't get lottery winner syndrome and just go buy a Ferrari and all of a sudden it's all gone. I really hope that wouldn't be the case. But I don't know how I would react to it now. I certainly at 18 years old would not know what to do with it. And the people that are in charge of making sure that that money is in the right places and that your mind is still screwed on straight, they don't even necessarily know what they're doing at the same exact time. So it's this whole thing, again, just to put a cherry on top of it, and I'll wrap it up here. What matters? That's the hardest thing to figure out for these young kids coming into college athletics, because there's so much there. And I love that the resources are there. Make your money. Okay, if you're working, you deserve to make that money. But where are the priorities? And it's not the same for everyone. And I think that's what's most frustrating about these coaches that are leaving, especially Mick Cronin.
Yeah. And again, I couldn't agree with you more. If you like this conversation and the ones we've been having here over the last 5 episodes previous to this one, make sure you hit subscribe. Make sure you like us and share this with your friends and family. Check us out on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Make sure you rate us as well if you like what you're listening to and want to be part of it. That's a great start. We mentioned that we have merch, and merch is now available on the National Soccer Network and on our website. So you can head over there and again, nationalsoccernetwork.com. Starting next month, we will give away a whole bundle of merch. And in the coming days, we'll talk about that on the show and how you can be put into the mix to win a free bundle of gear. And I'm talking t-shirts, a hoodie, and coffee mug, and basically a whole bundle of stuff. So we'll talk about how you can win that here coming up here in a couple days as we launch here into February in a couple weeks. So that's a lot to come here on the show, and we're excited that you're a part of it. Nathan, any final thoughts here before we kick it to get ready for next episode tomorrow?
No, I thought it was a really good conversation. Honestly, we could continue talking about coaching and NIL and all that other stuff coming up if you want to. I could really, really, really get into the weeds on all that. There is a subculture now in college athletics that is really fascinating to me. But yeah, no, good conversation today. Let's keep it rolling tomorrow.
I couldn't agree more. Again, subscribe, like, share this with your friends and family. Check out the nationalsoccernetwork.com where you can check out all the latest soccer news from around the United States, near and far. Coming up later this week as well, we got MASL games continuing here on the National Soccer Network. But from all of us here at Inside the Game, Jonathan Turner alongside Nathan Wengler, have a great rest of your Monday, and we'll see you next time for more Inside the Game.